Welcome to Now Next Later for Monday, September 29th. We have Brock Cassidy from NewZip on here, and I'm bringing him into the webinar right now. Brock, you are on Now Next Later.
Hey,
See if we
Jeremy.
can get your video working here.
Can you hear me at least?
Oh yeah.
All right. That's a
I
start.
think
That's a start.
I think having you off stage and bringing you on stage is quite dramatic, and I like it. And I was just introducing Monday's episode of Now Next Later, and thank you for joining us. So what we usually do is welcome in the audience today. We won't have any chat and we won't have any live questions. It'll just be you and I, and then we'll be back next week with a live episode, and maybe Brock will continue to join us. We'll see. But in the meantime, Brock, thanks for being on Now Next Later. How are you today?
Yeah. No, I appreciate it. I'm doing well. How are you?
Excellent. Excellent. Thanks. Trying to keep the energy up. So we have our three segments, Now Next Later, and the topic I threw out there for you and I to discuss was the changing landscape of lead gen. We've talked in different ways about, Gen Z preferences, first-time home buyer preferences, where leads are coming from, purchase versus refi. I think we'd like to dig in a little bit deeper on a topic that seems to be coming to some sort of dramatic, not conclusion, but crossroads. That's probably the best word for it. As servicers ramp up in a slightly lower rate environment, servicers are starting to make those calls and try to bring in volume. We're hearing pipelines are locking around refi for the vintage of the last few years, and then obviously if it's true that lower rates get people to move, we should see some purchase leads. And so we'd like to kind of dig in to the whole lead landscape, but I'll start with purchase, especially since that's what you think about and work on so much of the time, so much of your day. So
Mhm.
let's just start there with kind of where are we now? The last time we talked to you, we talked a little bit about the shift of people maybe getting pre-approved or verified approved before going shopping. Obviously, with rates dropping, people are scrambling. Can you just give us a sense, like, where are we right now in the purchase lead world?
Yeah, man, it's kind of an amalgamation of a bunch of different things going on right now. We're getting kind of the normal seasonality slowdown of, back to school, about to hit Q4 in the next couple days, where you'd think that the purchase lead flow is slowing down a lot, and we are seeing, that a lot of lenders are shifting the majority of their budget to refi in order to chase the low rates right now. Of course, a rate drop. There's obviously a race to refinance the people from the last couple of years. But I would say it continues to be kind of pent up demand for purchase. We've talked about it a million times, on here and everywhere else in the industry. That there still are, a few million would-be home buyers that have been trying to buy for the last couple of years. Maybe they got discouraged, maybe they came back. Maybe they're sitting on the sideline. Maybe they're sitting on the fence. So you do see a lot of activity with, would-be buyers playing with pre-quals, calculators, going to the lending tree, bank rate, own up, research center type experiences to
Hmm.
play with their affordability. So it's kind of an interesting time where I'd say the volume, as far as I know, is relatively, a little probably better than seasonality would normally suggest to flat.
Hmm.
But it also it is kind of just confusing where a lot of consumer direct lenders are pivoting their money towards refi. A lot of local, regional lenders that are focusing on their community footprint are pushing really hard with affordability because kind of like everything's a little better than it was when rates drop, but also it's still a tough time to buy.
Yeah, right on. So that actually brings up the question of, we're gonna, if we do see, I guess you're saying we're gonna see a shift, and these platforms, especially digitally enabled platforms, consumer direct, can just shift over to kind of pick up day to day whatever they want. And if
Right.
it's gonna be a lot of refi, it almost feels like what you're saying is it's going to get harder for purchase a lot of pre-approved or verified approved first-time home buyers because it's a little confusing where to go and how to stick with, a verified approval when everything's happening so fast and there's probably, a local agent at least, if not a local lender, also you know, squeezing their way in. So, do you see that going forward as something that digital lenders, online lenders, national brands are going to have to deal with? I mean, we're sort of in this like one foot in each world. We've really started to ramp up the digital pipeline and the digital user experience. We're also kind of stuck still in a lot of the call center and other types of lead production. And we sort of have this split personality. What's your sense of what this market in particular will drive us to in the next few months?
Yeah, yeah. It man, I think a lot of it is around a lot of the coverage in the industry at conferences in the last year or two has been around like the hybrid loan officer
Hmm.
and the hybrid lender, where you're not sure if it's consumer direct. Maybe it sort of advertises like consumer direct, plays like consumer direct, but they focus only on their footprint, markets or a couple of states, or the
Yep.
opposite where they're, they've got regional offices everywhere, but they take a consumer direct type branding, with Loan Depot sponsoring Major League Baseball, but they've got their branches everywhere, right?
Hmm.
So you're seeing everything kind of twisted where you can't tell who's who in the zoo between like what who's doing which strategy, which I think is kind of fun. For NewZip, we had a really clear view that we had this very obvious value add and a lot of case studies to prove it for national consumer direct lenders. The vast majority of partners we've signed and really built our business around over the last few years have been all different strategies. And so, other than just national consumer direct. So that's been fun. And I think a lot of that is because the tech is there for everyone. The tech isn't just there for those couple of companies that spent a ton of money building or buying it. And so I think that's one fun twist to it. And then the other thing I would say for where it's starting to go is still probably in the now section of the show, is that most people are the majority of borrowers are going to lenders first. That trend started, I think, in 2022, maybe 2023 for the first time. More home buyers started a conversation with a loan officer before an agent for the first time ever. And that trend is, as far as I know, continues to get more dramatic. And so we've built kind of a whole business around this idea, kind of a spinoff of our core business, where we're offering just specialized call center services to help borrowers with those, first-time home buyer type conversations, with those understanding your equity position in your current home type conversations, and where we staff our team with licensed real estate agents and with national MLS data. It's fun to build these campaigns. So I just think that's like the type of thing that you didn't need to do before because it was more obvious that this client is on a path to immediately buy a home or is not on a path to immediately buy a home. Now I think there's a lot more gray area.
Yeah, I want to highlight that because I think what you said is very good news for people who watch Now Next Later. Because I'm often a critic saying, well, these lenders are all in the same technology. They're bound by their vendors. They're captive to their large pieces of technology or software that they've purchased, POS, LOS. You've heard me say it. But what you're saying is actually there's enough technology now that at the front end of the funnel in particular, lenders can actually kind of pick and choose what to use, how to use it, and really create a different strategy. So it might not be differentiation from the consumer's perspective when they're shopping, but it's going to be a different strategy of how to get in front of them. And that actually is a very important distinction. I think that's really good news for people.
Yeah, yeah. And don't get me wrong, not every lender in the country is outbidding on internet leads, right?
Right.
For community, regional lenders, credit unions, the smartest play, or at least the most prevalent play, it seems like the smartest play, is reactivating their past clients or current members or banking clients, and leaning on their local presence and all the other things they do. So your past customer, as they always say in sales in all industries, your past customer is often your cheapest next sale, right? Your past customer is going to be the cheapest next borrower for them to activate. But you still have to nurture them. You still have to give them tools. You still have to call them and guide them through the experience, or give them tools to guide them through the experience. Maybe is a better way to say it for Gen Z and millennials that don't want to pick up the phone all the time. But that's what we've kind of built our business around, both for, doing it at tremendous scale and for doing it for specialized campaigns.
Yeah, I want to stay on that for a second. Stay on especially home purchase, buying a home, and kind of think about it as we shift into the next, from the now into the next. And I want to think about it in three categories because the first thing you said was first time home buyers are reaching out to mortgage earlier, first and earlier, more so than ever before. And I think this is
Right.
actually something that I know the industry struggled with when I joined the industry 15 years ago, and it still remains a challenge, which is most people don't want to do the hard thing first, figuring out their finances. They want to do the fun thing first, shopping for a home, looking at homes, touring homes, talking to realtors. But at some point in that 15 years, real estate agents got so busy, probably around COVID, that they actually stopped entertaining people who didn't have the verified approval, who hadn't
Right.
gone to mortgage first. So they
Right.
almost did us a favor that we had been waiting 30 years for real estate trends, to come our way from like a mortgage perspective. And so I think that's one group that now knows, okay, I have this letter. This letter is important. I can go shopping. And so their mortgage loan officer or the
Yeah.
mortgage company, the brand, can direct that lead. And so that's an interesting trend. You
On,
continue to build
on,
on
on
it.
on that point, I
Please.
will say though, I think part of what drove that point home, or that trend home, is that it's not so much that they stopped wanting to do the fun thing first, is that the fun thing got a lot easier.
Yeah, yeah.
Now you can find listings everywhere. You can find listings a million different ways, thanks to Zillow early on and a thousand other places now. And so it's made it where, yeah, sure, they're looking at Zillow first, or they're looking at their local real estate listings first. But then they go to a lender next before they go under an agreement with an agent. So that's kind of if you think about it, like, I know you're still technically, arguably a lawyer. So if you think about it, from like the course of like the agreements, most of them are starting to talk to a lender before they're under an agreement with a real estate agent. And so the lender does have that ability to streamline, drive the client to the right trusted partner that they're used to working with, or that will bundle the best discount, or that will do whatever the consumer wants.
And it's still to a degree, I think, a little manual in the way that you and I w would want it to be more technical, more fluid, more digital. But I
Right.
do think what you're saying is also this trend is going to continue because we're going to see people adding mortgage pre-approval in more and more places in the consumer's life. So they're going to start seeing it pop up. I'm thinking of Robinhood. Robinhood recently did a mortgage partnership with Sage Home Loans. To me, that partnership is an example of like now I'm in the Robinhood app and I'm seeing a pop up for verified approval right
Hmm.
there. And I think we're only going to see more of that. Wherever consumers live, they're going to see that pop up. So that trend will continue. The question will be which lenders get in there when. Right now, still kind of manual. Then hopefully a little bit more digital, but the competition will be fierce. I want to get back to the competition in a second, but there's two other groups that I also want to ask you about. One, I did the mortgage for the customer, and now, whether it was a refi or a purchase, and now they're going to downsize or they're going to move up, right? So the intermediate buyer, it's not their first house, but they're going to do something. They're either moving for a job, they're getting a larger house, or they're getting a smaller house. Those purchase leads are kind of hidden. They're hidden in your servicing book. They could come through there. They also could come through a typical top of funnel where that person just got poking around online, in the usual spots, and gets into the purchase lead gen funnel. Are you seeing anything in those two categories that's new and different this time around? Do you have any predictions on sort of where that group goes in the near
Yeah,
future?
I mean, it's really interesting to see. There's so one thing that has changed a lot or is in the process of changing a lot as we move to the next stage is the trigger lead ban bill, right? Um,
Yeah.
and so it used to be that there were, honestly, people would sell that data, the life event data, right?
Yep.
Where you could just find it, you could find the credit triggers, you could find a lot of other life event triggers, and you'll still be able to find some of that, and it's not necessarily right or wrong. But the two groups that definitely get it At least there's probably a few others, but the two groups that definitely get it are the servicer and the previous originator, right? And the previous real estate agent, maybe.
Hmm.
What's interesting to me is seeing what nurturing, education, just general like financial life tools that both parties, the previous originator and the servicer, sometimes they're the same, often they're different, are putting in front of people. And I give a lot of credit to the people that built their whole business in that space. Like we had Ernie from HomeBot on our show Real Fridays a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
They've really taken their product a long way, where it goes from just being sending listings to people to being a deeper tool that someone like a servicer can, can feel really good about putting in front of the client to like guide them through what's going on financially with their home, plus all the listings, plus all the fun stuff. But the funny thing is that a lot of those same tools are being used by multiple parties. So the client may be getting a home bought from someone in their servicing book. They may be getting some realtors CMA from the realtor. They may be getting another tech tool or another nurturing tool or another set of emails and nurturing campaigns from their past originator. So I love how much data is being given to consumers. I don't think it's been proven what sticks.
Hmm.
There's companies that are a lot better at it than others. We just talked about one that NewZip works with a lot. But it's kind of a fun Wild West of like, okay, there used to be thousands of companies would just buy this client's data and call them. Now there's two or three that have really nuanced data about the client, and maybe they use a fintech tool that also has a mortgage company. You know,
Yeah.
maybe
I think that's a really good
maybe they
point.
use NerdWallet and their mortgage company gets access to it. Maybe they use Rocket Money and Rocket gets access to it. Whatever, but it's a much smaller war, and it's a much more nuanced data.
Yeah, it would almost be fun to see how many CRM campaigns you're in or could get in or end up in these situations. Like I
Yeah.
think like HomeBot's a great example. I've been annoying you recently with this idea that propensity is the word of the year
Yeah.
upcoming. And HomeBot propensity is a great example of like if somebody's clicking around based on the way they're clicking around, how often they're going back, what they're looking at, that is an indication of they're doing something. And you can
Yeah.
often guess between that and the life event data that you mentioned and some of the other timing data what it is that they're doing. And so I think that's a great point. And I think the more we have there, it empowers the platform to reach out. But I do think we can risk overwhelming the customer. I definitely am thinking
Yeah.
just in my own inbox right now of my mortgage company and then competitive mortgage companies. I think I probably get 3 to 4 HELOC offers a day as a
Yeah.
homeowner
Oh
these
yeah.
days, given equity positions. And
Yeah.
so it is kind of interesting to think about what that competitive landscape would look like. So maybe what we do now is turn to that because you've teed it up nicely, which is the competition at the top of the funnel has never been more fierce. Um, we saw consolidation in the real estate market last week, anywhere in Compass.
Yeah.
That follows actually a couple of months of consolidation, candidly. Usually,
Sure.
when there's consolidation in real estate, mortgage follows. We can expect that, especially around MBA annual and beyond. So, as we think about up top of funnel competition, this fear that everyone has of Redfin Rocket, and just the general competitiveness at the top of funnel. Do you have a sense of what lenders are supposed to do? What do you tell lenders? What would you tell? Should you how should we recommend lenders think about moving up funnel, what they can do to think about this and how they can strategically approach it for the next 6 to 12 months?
Yeah, I mean, there's many different strokes for all the different folks and all the different niches, but I do think it's a really important time to build your purchase pipeline. You gotta start. Home buyers are taking longer than ever, right? When you and I worked at Rocket Mortgage, 12 years ago, 10 years ago. The speed of the transaction was a lot faster than it is now. That's due to the purchase transaction. That's due to inventory. That's due to all kinds of things. You think all the tech makes it faster? Doesn't matter. Um,
Yeah.
if you don't find the house and you don't get the deal done and the inspection doesn't come back or the appraisal doesn't come back, you see the headlines about record numbers of deals falling out. That slows things down by an extra few months when you run into that. So I'm a huge proponent. It takes at least 6 months, more like 8 or 9 months, for a lender to build a real purchase pipeline if they're, for example, entering a new market or if they've been refi focused with in some of their markets or all of their markets, or if they are a bank that has been out of mortgage for a couple of years or whatever. So I'm a big proponent of starting to build the pipeline now, starting to dig the well now before they're super thirsty in early next year. But I do think it depends on where you're sitting already. What I see and encourage a lot of folks to do is kind of that hybrid approach where they know their playbook for their core market or their couple of core markets, but they need to deploy a strategy to expand to neighboring markets. Or if they're, you see all the lenders in the Northeast that also have a Florida presence or also have sort of like a Sun Belt presence where they're trying to diversify and they're trying to help their same clients buy a vacation home or a retirement home or whatever. So that's something that we see a lot. But in terms of technology strategy, a lot of it's around your past clients, like we were just talking about. Let's get
Yeah.
them on much more detailed campaigns and much more detailed, really workflows is kind of like too much of a business term for a client, but it's one.
Yeah.
Let's get them on a more specific workflow to figure out if they have anything they need to do. They fit this box of something that means they may be a move up buyer. They fit this box that means that they may be in this profile of someone that may need to get a cash out refi. Whatever it is, let's just start getting them more nuanced campaigns. And really, I think at the end of the day, what we're seeing is that just buying leads isn't enough. You need to also own the trust and the nurture that comes in the next hour and day and week and month. Or if it's your past clients, you already have a leg up, but you still have to have that brand clarity, speed, consistent follow up. And so really, I think it's like not so much about buying more leads, but making sure you have better conversion and recapture by looping it all together. And you and I talk a lot about pricing and bundling and margin on all of this. And so that can go a long way too. I mean, we spend a lot of time with our partners thinking about how to present the bundling that they get between the mortgage and real estate savings. Some of them have their own title company and have various ways to bundle that savings in, like we talk about with Silk Title and other partners that we work with regularly. So yeah, I really think it's about leaning into those things.
Yeah, I think that's a great. Maybe this is me restating the obvious for everyone, and they're already like, yeah, we're way beyond this. But I think I really do think you just nailed it, which is it was the drip campaigns that we talked about a minute ago. It was just getting in front of the client maybe a couple years ago. Now and going forward, next and later, which is happening as we speak, you
Yeah.
have to actually know what to do with it. And I think this is where some people I've talked to are missing the AI point, which
Yeah.
is they're pointing AI at it without really knowing what to do about it. It's pointing AI at it without knowing what to do about it and thinking that that's just going to solve for the gap you identified between targeting the right lead and then knowing what that lead is looking for or needs to do about it and not targeting everybody the same. And I think often we're using AI to target. I don't think we're using AI yet appropriately to identify pre-target, if that makes sense. And so I
Yeah.
would look at that as my next thing, especially if I was a servicer, be like, how do I use some tools to target the right people? I'll figure out like what to target them with as well. Because now that's the level of sophistication of pretty much everybody out there. And just having
Yeah.
somebody call them randomly because their name popped up on a target list is probably not enough.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's where you see, one of the terms I like that I've heard a lot of partners using lately is like listening posts of like
Yeah.
it's like a very it's not a signal that they necessarily need a phone call, but it's a signal that something's going on.
Mhm.
they looked at a real estate listing. They adjusted a number in a calculator. They did. Yeah, you're listening, right? You're listening because it's either on your tech stack or maybe you're a lender who has a JV with a real estate company and it's on their real estate search portal,
Yep.
or maybe you use widgets like NewZip provides. Maybe you use a whole platform like HomeBot or Home Scout or some of those guys provide. There's a lot of ways to get those signals. But like it is important to listen and then respond and not just put them on a list, right?
Yeah, so let's talk about this a second. As we look ahead to later in the last 5 minutes or so here,
Hmm.
you mentioned a few names of different tools. I mentioned a few partnerships. You just said JV, which sort of is the magic word for me to ask this question, which is what do you see changing? What do you see lead gen 3.0? Let's skip over 2.0. Lead gen, if Lending Tree is lead gen 1.0 and Lending Tree Zillow are sort of 1.5, they're not really two, right? What do you see as coming next? What is it that lenders should be most attuned to? Which structures do you think are the most resilient going forward? And what's your take? And then we'll dive into a couple of them.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I guess to your first point of like the phasing of it, I do think it's worth noting like the biggest lenders in the country do have access to every single borrower, right? One way or another, they have it.
Yep.
Rocket used to make the joke that they bought every lead. Maybe Chase makes a similar joke internally that everyone's got a checking account. I don't know. I've never worked for Chase, but like the biggest lenders have access to everyone, right? So to your point, the difference between maybe the 1.0 and the 3.0 or the now and the later is not access to the leads, right? It's predicting the propensity, like you were saying, and what the propensity is to do probably is even more important. Make them an offer, right? Make them
Yep.
you were talking about getting HELOC offers. HELOCs are really straightforward. Maybe we can, get into more mortgage products where you can put an offer in someone's inbox. And I know some lenders already do that in various ways. Some tech platforms already do that in various ways. But I think that's a good example. And maybe more broadly, think about it as embedded finance.
Hmm.
You mentioned a minute ago, Sage Home Loans partnership with Robinhood. Sage is
Yep.
our partners. We're really proud of that. And they're getting really good. They're already really good, but they're getting even better at embedding their borrower experience into a lot of other things. Bankrate is a sister company of theirs. Robinhood is this partnership they're doing. I think there'll be a lot more for them and for a lot of other lenders, getting into the fintech apps, getting into the budgeting apps, getting into real estate platforms. Obviously, we're seeing that. And I do think the Redfin Rocket boogeyman is encouraging a lot more activity in that space. But maybe we think about it as invisible mortgage experiences, right? It's like an instant approval. There's very little to no friction. You have it when you need it. If you need to adjust the pre-approval, your realtor can get that in their hands already. That's a lot of the type of things we're working on, and are either things we're selling or on our roadmap for NewZip as sitting between the mortgage and real estate experience. But even beyond us, I mean, just think about it as a full homeowner ecosystem and life cycle.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. I love the thought of embedded mortgage because you reminded me of a lesson I learned, just as an entrepreneur, as an innovator. If you're first and you're wrong, it feels the same in that moment because you
Yeah.
can't tell, am I first or am I wrong around this idea or in the market? And I think one of the things about you and I have talked about for years was the mortgage as a service attempt.
Right.
And because software as a service was such a big business in Silicon Valley, a lot of mortgage companies are like, okay, we can do mortgage as a service. Think about it as a store window that you can put anywhere on the internet. Someone will click on it and you'll get that mortgage lead flow. And I think it's possible 5 years ago, it was just early. It wasn't wrong. And now what you're saying is between these fintech apps or where the customer lives, their regular checking and savings life or budgeting life, wherever that is on the internet, wherever that is in the app on their iPhone or on their Android, that's where they're going to see the offer. The offer is going to come through there and say, hey, we've been watching you
Right.
for 9 months. You're ready to buy a home if you want. We've been working with you for 12 months behind the scenes. You're ready to buy a home if you want. Click the green button to move forward. That's a very different lead gen experience. And I think if you get that right, or if that starts to mature, that is the exact same technology. If you put that in a listing site, if you put that in a realtor's website, if you put that in a realtor's app, if you have a realtor or a real estate agent handing that out as a link, it's the same exact thing. I think you're ready. Would you like to start now with us? The real estate folks aren't going to have the same visibility into the finances, but as far as embedding it as a storefront, they will. So I think those two are huge trends for later, but pretty soon we're going to be seeing proactive offers like that. Is
Yeah.
there? Go ahead.
No, 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 no. I totally agree. Yeah, I think that's exactly the right way to think about it. One thing that you occasionally see popping up that I think there's been some good progress in is in the real estate investing space,
Mhm.
like the done for you turnkey whatever real estate space. There's always like a race to make it even more turnkey. So
Yep.
I really enjoy following that. I've invested, tiny amounts into a couple of the platforms that literally do everything for you. But I was encountering one the other day that helps people, buy target Airbnb properties, and it was like, do you want to plug in this mortgage offer, this mortgage offer, this mortgage offer to give you your DSCR loan? And I was like, man, I don't think it's that easy everywhere else. I'm not buying one of those properties, but like this is excellent competitive research to see that it could be this easy, even for like a non-QM specialized product, as long as you know your client flow. In this case, the client flow is a rental property in this price range in Ohio. Cool. We know exactly which are the three offers to give you.
Well, that's a great place to end with a final question here, Brock. We're running out of time, but
Yeah.
I think this has been a really great conversation to get a lot of people thinking about which is going to be my strategy. I can't do everything against some of these big platforms, and I think the question you just brought up that I want to kind of end on here is like a lot of these conversations or data points are coming together in a moment, meaning like the listing table, the listing agreement's changing, the way that verified approval is happening is changing, the way real estate and mortgage comes together digitally or literally is changing. Do you have any last kind of predictions on, let's say it's September 29th, 2026, let's just say a year from now, where we will be on some of this convergence and what you'll be thinking about between now and then, keeping an eye out for trends wise or red flags that will something our audience should be looking out for?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I do think a lot of it will be continuation of what we've already spoken about, but I think the advice to be ready for that September 29th next year would be, auditing your current funnel. A lot of lenders, a lot of real estate companies, a lot of companies, period, still have really outdated funnels in certain places. Maybe you've innovated parts of it, but probably not all of it. So just audit for your follow-up points. I think we're coming into conference season. Use the conferences as a place to maybe meet new vendors, but probably more importantly, compare notes with your compatriots, competition, friends on where their choke points are and whether you have the same ones and how you're solving them. Using AI and analytics to take those to the next level. And of course, like we've spent most of the time talking about building out new content, education, and much more like nuanced journeys to catch these borrowers in their specific point in their transaction or pre-transaction, really. And continuing to double down on what you're already doing with brand clarity, where most of the products are very commoditized. Yeah, I think the way to think about it for lenders getting ready for, a year from now or 5 years from now is not like a huge departure from what they're doing now. But I do encourage everyone to think about expanding their footprint as margins continue to be squeezed, as leads continue to get more expensive and more competitive. Keep expanding your footprint, keep expanding where you're licensed, where you're focused, which channels you're building. And just remembering that the more embedded you can be with your partners, the more often you're going to win. And maybe your partners are just other parts of your own company, right? If you're a bank or you're a credit union, or you have a a joint venture with a real estate company or a builder. Just keep thinking about all those places where you can be that embedded experience. I think is really the best way to think about it.
Yeah, right on. I couldn't agree more. Clarity on strategy, which we said you don't have to differentiate on the commodity. You can differentiate on your strategy. So clarity on the strategy, get creative with the partners that you have or that you can go find.
Yeah,
And
find better ones to innovate
and
with and
and
bundle.
know your customer funnel. It's not know your customer, it's know your customer funnel. And don't sit on your, is it laurels? Don't sit on your laurels, don't sit on your hands.
Rest
You
on your
got you
laurels.
got to get out there. So thank you, Brock. Thank you everyone on for watching Now Next Later. We're really excited to bring you some new content next week and a new show on Monday, and we look forward to it. So Brock, thanks for joining us. I know we'll have you back, and we'll talk to you
Yeah,
again soon.
yeah, yeah. Thanks for having me. Thanks, everyone.
Take care.